I'm just rocking and bopping to the
Yeah,
introduction music. I love that.
same here.
Uh, yeah, as they say in Australia, g'day covers the whole spectrum. And this is the 4th of January, and it is our first live conversation with international coaches in January. Gerald is not with us this morning and will be missed. We expect him back next week. And so just the three of us. And Cass, I'll turn it to you for the first introduction. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Cass J. Henry. I am a holistic life mentor. We were just talking about monitors, and I have that stuck in my head. And
Right.
I'm from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. As a holistic life mentor, I'm interested in the bigger picture of what makes you you, the mind, the body, the spirit. I work with clients when they're feeling stuck, they're looking to overcome self doubt and manifest their dreams. They might be looking to make changes or start new habits or stop old ones, and I'm here to give a new, different perspective. I work with my clients both in person and virtually, and you can find me online at catastrophe.com.
Awesome. And I love that whole mind, body, spirit approach. I think that that's critical
Yeah.
to good coaching and being well coached on the receiving end of it. Shelly Ann, your turn.
All right, thank you. So I am Shellyan Edwards Barron, and I am a gratitude guide and habit coach from Trinidad and Tobago. And my whole journey for 2024 is all about helping my clients find that blissability. You see that word that we encountered last year when we had that discussion? It has stuck with me because I believe that people over 40 really deserve to pursue their goals with joyous energy. And what I've found, at least in my own life and many of the people I've encountered, is that somehow after that age it's like like the walls start closing in and we start to feel like time is running out, but it doesn't have to be that way. So what I do is to introduce my clients to the gratitude strategy, which helps them say it right by making language and self-talk empowering. They learn how to say it loud by making gratitude tangible and active, and how to say it always by establishing that daily habit of gratitude. And with that daily habit of gratitude, we form a foundation that allows for the development of other habits that really get them to where they want to be with joy and energy. And that's all it's about. So if anyone is interested in that, pursuit of goals with gratitude, check out Getting It Done with Gratitude on YouTube. That's a channel that I co-host with a friend of mine. Every Thursday morning, we go through different topics. This morning, we spoke about kickstarting the year with gratitude. It's an awesome discussion we had today. So I'll put the link in the chat so you can find it. And you can check me out on LinkedIn or on Facebook as well. Ooh, and
Oh, I think
Steve
we
is
lost
on.
our host.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll see
Ah,
how he rejoins, but we're talking today about environmental effects. So we're looking at how your immediate environment affects the way that you work, the way that you interact with your joy of work. And um, I wanted to talk a bit about before we do that exact the environmental piece, talking about a little bit something that we talked about before, which is getting enough sleep,
oh,
and the idea that that is the foundation of what your
mm,
environment is built upon. Because if you are coming in and you're dragging yourself in, it doesn't necessarily matter how great you set up your environment if that internal environment isn't functioning with it.
yeah. I think what last year when I did the habit coaching course, that's when I really understood exactly how impactful environment is. Um, and simple things that we overlook, those are often the things that impact us incredibly. And I know when it comes to sleep, one of the things that I try to do doesn't always work out. I don't, my cell phone doesn't stay with me because I get into work on my phone as well when it's time for bed. So that's one of the things in terms of, arranging your environment in a way that it would support you rather than create friction or pain, which is what keeps us back. Oh, and Steve is back.
Yes, sorry, my internet just dropped out for some reason, and I was at its mercy until it came back. I'm sure it was a line switch or something out in the wild environment. It affects us.
Well, how
Yeah.
about you introduce yourself to everybody?
Mhm.
Well, yeah, they probably already know who I am, but my name is Stephen B. Henry. My friends call me Steve, and I've
Oh, we're going to lose him again, maybe.
Yeah.
That's too bad. That's
everybody. But if you
ironic.
prefer, a digital content creator, an online presence consultant, and a business success guide. I do a lot of personal mentoring. I work with men and women wanting to start or expand their online presence, and I help them get unstuck in their personal and business lives and move forward with their online journey of success. I'm a Canadian living in the US. You can find me at stephenbhenry.com. And I often say the time to hire your guide is before you get lost in the woods. And my I Can mission statement says it best, I guess, to give as much value as I can to as many as I can, as often as I can, for as long as I can. And that's what I'm doing as we go into the new year. Glad to be here.
Awesome.
Good.
Yeah.
So you got started there. I caught the last bit of that. I'm going to share a story. We talk about storytelling, and especially in coaching, storytelling is good. I had a client many years ago that really had some difficulty with their environment. They had been 20 years at a big corporation, a multinational corporation, in an executive position, and they were leaving that corporation and wanting to start a business coaching business of their own and work from home. And they thought that would just be such a great thing to be able to work from home and spend more time with the family. Because as an executive in a large company like that, they had traveled a lot. They had done a number of things that took them away from their family on a regular basis. He was financially okay. He was leaving the company with the typical golden parachute and then a great uh, investment portfolio that he had built over the years, and a good retirement income. He didn't need to work; he just wanted to. So he started out, and there was they lived in a very nice, fairly large home, and there was a breakfast nook sort of thing off of the kitchen. And the kitchen was very large, and they had a kitchen table in there anyway that the kids would sit for breakfast, and they'd be preparing the kids' lunches to go to school and so on. So they never really used this breakfast nook, and he converted it into an office. And it had two French doors, glass French doors that closed. And he put a desk and some shelves and his computer and printer and all that stuff, and got his office in there. And he would have trouble getting started in the morning. He was a routine person, liked to get, from habit over the years with the corporation, liked to get up, get to work, get going with his stuff. And he'd had a particular routine that he followed when he went to work. He used to go by this drive-through coffee place and pick up a coffee from the drive-through window and kind of sip that as he was driving into work. He had about a 45-minute drive to work. And at that coffee place, they always had a newspaper for him. They sold. There was a newspaper rack in the sit down part of the coffee shop, and they pulled the paper off of there because they knew he would pick that up every day and take that into work with him. He didn't read that on the drive, so he was in the habit of doing that. And now he just got up, got his coffee out of the coffee maker, and walked into his breakfast nook, converted office, and sat down at his desk and just couldn't get going. And his kids were there having breakfast and chatting and so on, and the glass doors didn't really stop, the noise, but they were glass and they didn't stop the view either. So he was looking at his kids and looking at his wife, and it just happened that his desk faced those glass doors, and so it kept him involved in what was going on in the kitchen. And he came to me to find out if there was some way that, some habit he could develop. Cheyenne, I didn't know you at the time. It would have been good to get him into new habits. But he came to me because he wanted to figure out what he could do, how he could, make things happen better. And with all his corporate experience, he couldn't handle the household situation. So I went over to his house, had a look at his office, and it was a great little working space. We can talk about working spaces as we go forward. And had all the things that he needed to run a good office, not overdone and not overly expensive, a nice desk, a nice chair. And it actually had an outside door. It went out to a little bit of a deck and steps down and sidewalk around to the driveway where his car was. Um, and so it had some uh, things that he wasn't making use of. So I got him to get heavy curtains for his French doors, and a curtain rod, and hang these tapestry like curtains on the door to stop some of the sound and stop all of the view. And when he got up in the morning, he would, I said, what I want you to do is I want you to get in your car and drive to that coffee shop. And, it's just a few minutes across town before you go out of town to drive to the city where your old job was. So you can just drive to there easily, pick up your usual coffee and newspaper, come back, park in your driveway, walk around the back of the house, go up the steps to the deck, and go in the back door to the office, sit down and start working. And he did that. He thought I was crazy, but he tried it. And he would say goodbye, kiss his wife goodbye, say goodbye to his kids. They would be going out to the bus in a few minutes, get in his car, drive and get his coffee and paper, come back, get into his desk. By that time, the kids were gone on the bus, and he had no time getting to work and, getting into his stuff, and no problem at all. And it worked. A change of the use of his environment, not actually a change of the environment, but a change of the way he perceived it and interacted with it, that took advantage of his previous 20 years of habit. I don't know how long he was going for the coffee, but it was years anyway with his work. So it was an important habit. And when he didn't have that action, it stressed him, and he
Yeah.
couldn't function properly because of the stress. And I think that that's a story, and I've elaborated a little bit on it, but it's pretty much how it happened. And it has, so much in it, if you parse it and take it apart, that we need to think of ourselves, all of us, and the environment we're in, and where those stress points are, so that we can deal with them. And they may not be what we think they are. It may not be the messy stack of papers over on the side of the desk or behind us on the table or whatever. It may not be these things that we can see. A lot of times it's stuff that's unseen
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
affects us in our environment and the way we interact with it. I think that's the important message there.
Yeah, I really like that. What I picked up on is one of the points I had to make was about treating it like a real office. Just
Mhm.
because it's in your home, just because you pass by it all the time, you want to be able to come into your workspace and leave your workspace when you're doing work, and you also want to be able to take real breaks from your workspace.
Yeah.
You don't just, oh well, I'm not going to work on that, so let's move this off to the other screen and play on some YouTube for 15 minutes. No, get up, go get a drink, go for a walk, go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do. Take that 15 minutes away from your real office workspace so that you're actually getting a break. Yeah, I heard a lot
Yeah.
of things in what you said there.
Yeah, I thought, and one of the things that made me chuckle as well is that my second daughter, she's homeschooled and she does a program online. And recently, what we've started doing is that we got her a polo shirt and a type of skirt And so she gets up and gets ready for school. And so this year when she started back, we were having a good laugh because she was late for her first day of school.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so I asked her, do you want me to write a note about that? But the whole idea is coming up to the end of the year, she was really struggling because we had stopped the routine. And so she didn't have that separation from the computer that she plays games on and everything else. It was just, okay, when am I going to get schoolwork done? But now, since she has done that, um, she's completed 2 assignments in 2 days when it took her 6 weeks before just to process the ideas. And so, environment really, really makes a difference. And for me, when I did the habit coaching course that really clued me into environment, there are like two groups or two types of environments. So far we've been talking mostly about the physical space, but there's also the relationship and emotional space where we deal with people, and having people come into the work office that we've set up at home, especially when we're working at home. And this, I guess this goes for even if you're in an office as well. You can have a designated workspace that you drive to and go to, but then the people around, somebody always has something to tell you. There's a phone ringing and, distractions all around. How do you deal with that in terms of safeguarding your environment? That is another really big aspect of environment.
Yeah, having some scripts, like if somebody interrupts you in a certain way, what are you going to
Hmm.
say to them? And having that boundary that like this is your office space, and you either can or cannot accept that uh, interaction, right? You can choose that, oh
Hmm.
no, I can't be interacted right now. I'm working very specifically on a project to a deadline. Or, oh yes, I can take a break from what I'm doing and pivot to what your colleague may need, right? Um, it's interesting because I also, one of the things that I came across that again for working at home was a noise generator. There's all kinds of them out there. There's apps, there's um, websites, there's all kinds of them. But the one I came across was called mynoise.net, and it has I think 10 little things on it, and it depends on what scenario you're looking at. The one I was looking at was my office, and you get to choose the volume of whether the air conditioner or the people talking or the printer or the background noise or yeah, it was really neat. You could choose which one was going to be there, and then you just set that, and then you work as though you have all that noise that you're used to at the office, that you're used to turning into white noise or overcoming. When you're at home and it's suddenly super quiet, it's hard sometimes to get started. So there's a
Yeah.
bunch of them out there, but that's the one that I came across.
Yeah,
And also
I
I
love
wanted to
that.
pop in here. We had a really great comment here from somebody that said, if you want to treat it like an office, then call it your office. When you speak it, then you begin to believe it. And I think that's something that you talk a lot about, Shelly Ann, is speaking it
Yeah,
into
yeah,
existence.
using language, when it comes to now with my family, they know and they understand I'm at work. I'm not just sitting by my computer doing something. I am actually at work. And so I have the drapes to one side that's blocking off. And, it's funny now, but setting it up took a little bit. It's not just, okay, I'll put it up and everybody would understand. We had to sort of fall into that groove over time. But they come and they knock on the drapes. It's like,
Yeah.
excuse me, are you free? Because they understand this is my workspace. And so that
Yeah.
when I'm here, I'm at work. It's but the language has to go with it. So I don't just say, for example, that, I'm going to my computer. I say I'm
I'm
going to
going to
work.
my office.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to my office, and I usually say going to work.
Uh-huh.
But definitely, I'm going to be adding that office word there because it makes a difference to you as the individual, but it also sets the tone in your environment. And what I recognized is that when we set that tone, the people around us work with that. So it's not just that, okay, they're bothering me, but what am I doing to facilitate and to accommodate this interruption? How can I make that change with the interruption and set the boundaries? And definitely having that those phrases, yeah, that works tremendously. And oh, by the way, for those who are, just tuning in, we had a conversation similar to this some time ago, and I had mentioned a client of mine who was, trying to reclaim her time and so on. And we were working on having her set aside 10 minutes every day for herself and working on it. And the time she chose was a time when she was physically at her office, at her job, um, and we worked out. We actually sat down and worked out, what if somebody calls you to a meeting? What are you going to tell them? What if the phone rings? What are you going to do? What if a client comes in? What are you going to do? And so we actually worked out, you know, one way to decline, one way to say, can I, give me 10 minutes? And another one, if it's something urgent because life happens, we can't say, well, okay, I'm just gonna hard and fast stick with this. How to shift the time down. So today I might not be able to do it at 11, but I can do it at 11:30. So I still get my time for me and for what it is I want to do. And so that preparation, and I asked her about it coming into the new year. She'd been doing it. Now I think it's probably about 4 months or so she's been doing it. And she was happily, excitedly telling me, oh, no, nobody's going to get my time. And I'm thinking of adding in another 5 minutes. But when I first recommended it, she was like, how is that going to work? I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so we ended up with was an experiment. And that's another thing about the environment, experimenting to figure out what works.
Just a small thing. You mentioned having drapes, and I mentioned heavy drapes over the door of my client's office. Um, Having a drapes or a tapestry in your office, hang one on the wall, whatever. If you're going to be an online coach or you're being coached online, um, and you're a little bit worried about the sound and so on, a tapestry or drape will deaden the echo a little bit. Rooms tend to echo, and microphones, we have hard surfaces called walls, and microphones pick up those echoes, and it can, sound a little tinny with your voice. And you don't like your own voice anyway when you first start, working online and you hear yourself.
Oh, isn't that the
Um,
truth?
yeah, so having that drape or that tapestry really helps with the sound, and it is surprising how much difference it makes. I mean, if you have a brick wall like I do, you get all kinds of echoes, and so it's difficult. But when you can actually hang the tapestry instead of just painting the bricks, you can get a much better effect. I use very special paint here, so it actually deadens the sound, but um, it's a thing. But
What is that,
the
fabric paint?
Yeah.
yes, it's fabric paint, exactly. Yeah, for those who don't know, this is not actually a
Yeah.
real brick wall. Um, I have another story that I tell, which I won't, but a lot of people really think it's a brick wall. It's very realistic, but it provides that tapestry for me to handle the sound.
Mm.
I mean, I'm speaking towards my monitor. Monitor's a hard, flat surface. My voice echoes back off of that, and if there was a hard wall behind me, it would echo off the wall back to the microphone. And so, you get this time delay echo that is, you may not even hear it yourself with your ears, but the microphone is sensitive enough to pick it up. And so
Hmm.
something like that, especially behind you, but even beside you, can be a real boost. Look at radio studios or professional uh, uh, podcasters,
Sound
and
booths. Oh yeah.
you see on the wall they've got foam,
Yeah,
um,
the
or
sound foam.
even egg crates. The trays that 24 eggs come in, have those put up on the wall as something to deaden the sound, and it makes a heck of a lot of difference in what you're doing. And it's these kinds of little things, very little things, that flush out your entire environment, from the sound recording to the tapestry to whatever. There's just so many things that can make things better. Shelly Ann has a plant in the background, and having plants around you can make the environment less harsh. And you
Yeah,
set up an office, and it becomes pretty techy,
yeah.
especially today with computers. But you put a plant in it, and suddenly it becomes a little more
And
relaxed.
even little touches like this particular painting, this is one that I did. So I have my name and the date. 2022 is when we did this. But having this here, I specifically put it near where I can see it when I'm coming in, so that I'm reminded of my creativity and I'm reminded of certain things and the experience. And so when you said little things, in terms of
Yeah,
actions, they're little things, but the impact they have on the space and how we feel in that space is huge.
yeah. Is that a stretched canvas?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay. So there's a sound deadening material right there. So it's doing double
Hmm.
duty,
Mhm.
and you may not have
Yeah,
even thought of the other alternative. Yeah, it's again, it is little things that you can find that will change that environment in a little way that will make huge impacts on your
yeah,
performance and your success. Yeah, this
yeah.
is this is not rocket science, but the impact is as great.
Yeah, one of the things that I had on my list here was to be inspired, and Shelly Ann, you really
Mhm.
just oh my goodness, I didn't even see that coming up next. Inspired was the word I was going for here. Maybe it's quotes that are motivational. I know that Gerald would be jumping in here talking about how in his space he has those quotes that
Yeah,
fill him often. Maybe it's a video of your family. Whatever it is, it could be simple, but it gives you that inspiration. And it could even be something like every time you come into your office, the first 5 minutes you watch an inspirational video, and that's what gets you pumped. Just like right when we start our talk today, we get pumped by that music, it gets us
yeah,
going. So just
yeah,
something that's going to inspire you towards what you are working towards.
Yeah,
yeah. My
and it's
number one
amazing.
thing, of course, is gratitude.
Yeah, it's amazing how that music works when we get started. It gets us in the groove for what we're doing, and I don't know for sure because Shelly Ann put that together. Um, but I'm guessing, Shelly Ann, that you did not think about the music as pumping us up to get started. You were looking for something that was just catchy and mellow enough that it fit behind the motion of what was going on the screen, which is perfect for
Well,
developing that.
actually, I pay attention to the music a lot. I've had the privilege of working with video editing, and music is something that I'm very, very keen on. And I wasn't particularly thinking about pumping us up, but I was thinking about the audience, those who are listening.
Yeah,
When they hear the music, they're energized and they know something good is coming behind it.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
did,
And so
and then Cass and I went through quite a few songs before
yeah,
we settled.
and what happened is that side effect, that alternate effect of, again, the painting being used as sound deadening, the music
Mhm.
there getting us started, because we come into this in the morning, for all of us it's morning or noon. We are uh, doing other things we have to set aside to come into it. We're maybe not motivated this particular morning. It is, after all, a Thursday, and we're waiting for Friday. But that music is just so perfect for me, anyway. I just love it. And I've actually gone to my Facebook group where this streams live, different days, and just clicked on the the replay stream of this presentation just to get that opening music, and then not listen to the rest of it because I was there, and
Yeah.
get back into what I want to do. And
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
a silly little admission there, but it is, little things make the
Yeah.
difference, and that's what we're sort of talking about with the environment. Big things are important too. I
Mm,
think, if you live in a house with people around you, with family, whatever the situation is, then having your own closed space for your office is important. If you're by yourself, you can choose anywhere you want, and it can be, an end of a living room. But you don't want it to be the end of a living room if you've got three kids watching television. So,
mhm.
you need to look at the circumstances. There is no one
Yeah.
size fits all here, and we need to do that. We also need, and I'm going to touch on this, kind of a little further afield. Um, we also have to look at the effect of our environment long term. Even if we change our environment, even if we fix things that are broken, sometimes those broken things will affect us on into our daily lives when they've been fixed. And I think the best example of that recently is the COVID lockdowns. And so many people coming out of COVID have kind of lost their way. They've lost their step. They're not really sure what it is they want to do. And even those of us who, work from home anyway, where lockdown was not a problem, um, we were still affected by it because we couldn't do some of those things like Cass suggested, taking the breaks. And, sometimes a break is going to the coffee shop or going grocery shopping, or, just going out and doing some window shopping, and, or maybe going out for lunch. So it's a break from the routine of habits are good, but sometimes you need to break the routine just a little bit to clear your mind and then pick the habit up again. So
Yeah. And
instead of
actually,
going,
that in and of itself is a habit, breaking the routine at
yes,
intervals.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so instead of going to the kitchen to make lunch, you go out for lunch. But during lockdown periods, you couldn't do that, or the restaurants were closed anyway. So, it really affected us in our daily lives at all levels. And here we are now. COVID's still around. It's going to be like the flu. It's going to be always with us, and it's going to, come back a little stronger seasonally. But and it's going to mutate, and maybe we'll get used to it. Maybe we won't, but we're out now. In most places, lockdowns have been lifted, and we're out, and things are back. Restaurants exist again, and all these neat things. But there's still anxiety and stress and
Mhm.
impact on things that we did in the past. And we carry that with us into our future, into our environment, even though the environment is no longer what caused that. It's no longer the same as what caused it. So don't expect, when you make changes, if you're listening to this today and you're saying, oh, this is cool, this is cool, these are great points, I never thought of that, I want to do that, and you go out for the rest of the week, and Monday you start in your new office, your new environment, and everything is cool, don't just expect the difficulties to go away. You will carry some of them forward, and you will have to build the replacement
Yeah.
habits that will come into
Yeah.
play there. Yeah.
There's a transition period, and I know for me and people who have challenges with, like, ADHD, and those who are on the spectrum and any kind of divergent thinking, transitions are significant. And because of that, I always have a step up and a step down sort of, period where I recognize, because I have challenges with transitions, that I need to, one, allow myself the space and the compassion to feel what I'm feeling, but also engage in certain activities that I know would lead me toward where I want to go. And so, for example, I'm a tutor. I tutor with creative writing and different things. And this week is the first week of school, but I don't have any classes this week because I need to transition from the Christmas break, which I worked up to, right on the cusp of the the holiday. I worked right up, but I need that transition so that for me, during the first week of the year, I'm settling in, getting used to the new year, the new dates and everything, so that when I begin classes next week, I am fully present. But I worked that transition time into my schedule because I understand how transitions work with me. And I think recognizing that transitions are a thing and they can affect you significantly, allow yourself and factor that in as you're working on your environment and relationships and everything.
Yeah, keep your expectations realistic, right? Know yourself and know what's going to affect you and how
Hmm.
you need that time, and then actually giving yourself that time. Just because, like Steve said, just because you set everything up to be perfect, it doesn't mean suddenly you're going to have the perfect experience with your office space. It might give you that leg up, but you still need to keep doing the work. And
Yeah.
another thing that this made me think of was checking in with yourself, especially around your environment. Have the things that you've put into practice been working for you? Are they not working for you? Are they working in a way that says, oh, well, that means I need to lean more into them? Definitely
Hmm.
checking in with your emotional self around it. How do I feel about this? And checking in with the physical, like, is this working for me or not? Or do I need to add, a cup warmer for my coffee because the kitchen's too far away? I don't know. Whatever those things are.
Yeah, it's
No.
so important that we understand that we are part of our environment. Our environment isn't just a thing around us. It becomes what it is when we are part of it, when we are in it. And so, yes, it affects us. We affect it. We're organized. We put things where they belong, or we're messy and things are all over. That's us, not the environment. It becomes the environment, but it's us doing it. And the environment affects us, how we work, and we need to, look at how we interact with it. And in essence, we are inhabiting an environment of our body, of ourselves. And so our mind, our thoughts, our psyche has two environments. It has the body that we're in, and that affects
Mm-hmm.
us, affects our, relationship with our workspace. And then we have that workspace around us. And wherever we go, of course, we enter new environments all the time, and we develop habits and we develop comfort levels within those environments. And sometimes we need to, um, you know, sit on a tack, get some, motivation going in our environment. We can't
Yeah,
become totally
pain-free
comfortable.
motivation, right? We want to use
Yeah.
gratitude. No.
Yes. Yeah. 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 It's there. But a thing that was brought up earlier that I think is worth exploring too, and Shelley Ann, I think you covered it off in the best way possible. We talked before about communication, and I think that is where we talked about your client who, uh, is cutting out some space at work. Um, we need to communicate with people around us, and
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have interruptions again. Shelley Ann, you
Yeah.
used that word, interruptions. We are going to have interruptions, and when we work from home especially, it's not only family that interrupt us, immediate family, it's extended family and friends that will often interrupt us because they have a job and they go 9 to 5 or whenever it is, and they deal with the job and they come home, and when they come home they're off work and they don't see any problem. So when they see us working, and especially if we happen to be working in our job at a time when they're off, we're at home. They don't see it as a problem to come over and interrupt us, knock on our door, and expect to have a cup of coffee and spend an hour. And you need to draw those boundaries. Cass uses the word boundaries quite extensively, and you're so right with it. you need to draw those boundaries and communicate with the person. Look, I've got 15 minutes. Let's go to the kitchen and have a coffee, but I have to get back to work. This project is due. Oh, you don't need to worry. You're working from home. You don't need to worry about that. Oh, yes, I do. I've got some deadlines I have to meet, and let's not waste my time explaining that. Let's spend 15 minutes and enjoy ourselves.
Prioritize is
It's
another word there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
and
guess
so that's our environment. Yeah,
I was going you used the word earlier, Steve, inhabit. And that's the question that I put when I set up the live. Are the spaces we inhabit supporting our goals and aspirations? You know, we this time of the year, December and January, regardless of what the research tells us, this is the time when people, make these New Year's resolutions. And it's a new year, so it's a new me. I'm going to get going. I'm going to do this and do that. But then, how often do we pay attention to the environment that's going to support that? And so for me, last year was really the first time that I looked at the environment in a holistic way. Because as you mentioned, Steve, you said we have our bodies, which is our physical environment that we inhabit, and then we have the outward physical environment, and then we have the social environment, which would be the relationships. And so when you had bumped off the first time, Cass was talking about sleep, and that is something that when it comes to our physical environment, the body that we inhabit, it's something that we need to pay attention to. And we often don't pay attention to it for many, many reasons. For example, last night I was in the zone and I was getting some stuff done and the words were coming, and I looked up and I saw 11:45. I said, okay, 15 minutes. And then I went again and I looked up and I saw 12:30. I'm like, another 15 minutes, and because
yeah,
I'm not done yet. And so by the time I was done with my 15 minutes, it was like 1:30, and I'm like, oh crap, I have to get up and be alive at 7. How am I going to do this? So I got less than 5 hours sleep. And so, today is going to be an interesting day. It has been. I'm making it, but we do need to pay attention to the environment a little bit more, especially where sleep is concerned. And it's
yeah.
something that I see all the time, because when it comes to going after goals, we have this idea that, we can sacrifice sleep. It doesn't work that way very well.
That's where the
Especially for
work-life balance comes in, right?
yeah,
Looking
Mhm.
at, which parts are going to fit in where and how I can
yeah,
keep that
Yeah,
balance.
yeah,
And, um, you know, the 15, both of you mentioned 15 minutes, and I love that like 15-minute chunks. It's really great that you can say I'm working, I need to get back to it. But sometimes when you work from home, remember that part of the reason you want to work from home is like, oh, the kids got home at 3, my day usually runs 9 to 5, but the kids are really excited about something. I can actually put a pin in it, I can pause. That's part of what
yeah,
my pleasure and joy of working from home is I can go and see what the kids are really excited about, and I don't have to miss out on that because I'm actually here. So
yeah,
again, that prioritizing, but also being able to be flexible and pivot and find balance between that work and the home, and that you're here for a good reason. You
yeah.
wanted this for lots of reasons.
Absolutely.
mhm,
And it's interesting. You said work life balance. I was going to speak at that same moment, and I was going to be talking, what I was going to share was the family and the work coexisting, and you've covered it
mhm,
so beautifully. When I was in the corporate world, I knew an executive who would meet with people for 5 minutes, and if they wanted to see him. And when his secretary let him know that somebody was there to see him, he got up and came out of his office and met them in the forward area of his office where the secretary's desk was, and he would meet them standing up. and not offer them to sit down, not invite them into his office, and he would give them 5 minutes. And then he would look at his watch. He had it pretty much timed. He did this for a long time, and he would look at his watch as a tool, not because he needed to know the time, but he would look at his watch and say to the person, "Listen, I have to get back to what I'm working on. I'll take that under advisement, or write up a report on it and forward it to me, or whatever the culmination of that 5 minutes was." And he would go back to his office and close the door. And people who weren't familiar with that routine would stand there kind of looking at their hands and, and look over at the secretary. And she would say, come back when you have the report. And it was amazing how much he was able to get done
Yeah.
by not holding meetings that would run. I had a boss who loved meetings and would bring the entire staff together. I wonder sometimes how our department ever got stuff done, because we would have 3 meetings a week that would run all morning.
Wow.
And they were good, but they didn't have to involve all 23 people. If he'd had
What's that meme? I just came from a meeting that could have been a memo.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And
Oh,
somewhere he had got into this habit of holding these meetings, but wanting everybody there, because our department had 3 sections to it, and each meeting was focused on the work of one of those sections. But he wanted the rest of the staff there so they could answer when there was something that was cross department that needed an answer, rather than deferring that to have somebody go and ask, excuse me, or he would contact somebody and bring it back to the next meeting. He wanted everybody there. And so we had 3 mornings a week that for most of us were non-productive. And
mm,
it was very, very frustrating. And it meant people had to work harder to make up for the time to get their jobs done. And he was a disaster, as a leader. He actually became the leader in that position, the department head, and a director in the company, um, because he had enough stock in the company, when enough shares, when the smaller company was bought out by the bigger multinational company, and part of the buyout included people being in positions based on what they owned, not what they could do.
mm,
Bad decision, but
yeah.
that's corporate life. But the environment, it can expand, and whether you are, working on your own from home, you're working in an office, whether you're running a bigger company, you have employees, your environment has a huge impact, almost to the point of dictating what you are able to
Oh,
do.
yeah. I believe in that because while you guys were speaking, something came to me in terms of the prioritizing. Um, for me, I had to learn how to prioritize effectively because everything is urgent, everything is important, everything has to be done now. So, excuse me. So, I had like, if I had 10 things on the list, they were all number one, right? I didn't have like one, two, three, four, five. It was like all across the same board. Um, but the idea for me was that's when I started with time blocking and task grouping. Those are two concepts that really made a difference because I schedule my meetings in the morning, and during the day there's a block where I do, writing and editing and different things. And then in the evening I have my classes. After classes I have certain things done. So I my brain is already primed, so I know kind of what's happening at each segment. And when I met with my colleague on Tuesday, we were working out, the different topics for getting it done with gratitude. She asked me, she said, "How do you get so much done?" I laughed and I said, "I don't sleep. I mean, that's part of it, but I'm working on that part. I'm getting more sleep these days." But what I realized in that conversation is that the time blocking and having the accountability sessions makes a huge difference. So that I have, I think, 4 accountability sessions scheduled, during the week. 2 are for writing only. And so working on textbooks and different things, well, actually, no, 3 of them are for writing only, and one is more of a, like a mastermind discussion. And so between those, I get things done because I have the time scheduled for it. And my brain knows from 7:30 to 9:30 I'm writing, and I'm working on blogs, and I'm working on other writing projects. So I'm working on the textbook. And so what I've done is to kind of compartmentalize. So on a Friday, this is what I'm working on. On a Monday, this is what I'm working on. And just carving out those little chunks has allowed me to, not feel like I have to be wondering, okay, what do I do now? I know what I'm doing now. I know what I'm doing next week, Thursday at 7:30. I'll be writing. And I know what I'm doing next week, Friday at 7:30. I'll be working on my textbook. And so I have that because I've blocked out the time. And I know afternoons, I don't really get too much done. So I do certain things at certain times. And so it comes back to what Cass had mentioned, knowing yourself and knowing what works for you and how to sort of maximize on your efforts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so key to be able to find those things. You want habits and experiences that work for you. And good coaches share their experience, their stories, their methodologies, but they don't drive you into a framework. They
Mhm.
provide, Cass, you use the expression of providing scaffolding rather than supports. And it is so interesting. The scaffolding doesn't support the building, it allows the workers to get to the places in the building where work needs to be done. And so, as good coaches, we know many things that need to be done and we can spot them, but we need to get to those places with our clients and get them
Mhm.
done rather than try to mold the client into what we think is the best deal. We need to go all over the client's environment with the scaffolding. We need to get access to all aspects of their environment so that we can work with them to find what works for them, because it may fit exactly what we do and it may be the antithesis of what we do or somewhere in between, and it needs to work for them. We can't walk away as
Mhm.
a coach and leave them struggling with things that work perfectly for us, but that just don't
Yeah.
answer the questions for them. And that's what good coaching really does. And those of you out there listening that are coaches, you want to think about that. You may know the answers, but they're your answers. And what you want to find out is your client's questions, and then together find answers to
Yeah.
those questions. And that's the process in a broad sense. You're going to narrow it down to your expertise and your interests and so on. But don't be afraid. Also, I've got 2 regular coaches right now and kind of a third. Um, I've always had multiple coaches through my life. Very, very seldom did I just have one, and I can't even think of a time when I've had nobody. Um, and so, as a coach, when you're working with clients, don't be afraid to reach out to other coaches that may be more expert in certain areas. Don't be afraid to uh, get involved in joint discussions with a coach away from your client to find solutions for your client. Have your own coach or coaches that you can turn to when you need assistance with parts of your client's environment that you're just not familiar with. There's no shame in that. There's nothing wrong with not being the whole answer to everything. As you gain more and more experience and probably more and more age, you tend to become more experienced. You have more things to share, and you've learned different and better ways to do things. But those still are not the only ways. There's an expression that's often used. It's an older expression, maybe not as common today, but when you referred to somebody who was very skilled, you would say something like, they've forgotten more than we'll ever know. And what that means
Mhm.
is that they have
Yeah.
learned so much that the portion of it that they've forgotten, we all set things aside and forget them, but that portion that they've forgotten is bigger than everything we know, everything we will know. I mean, they're experienced and they're wise and they're out there. And I think that's true. I think that we do that. But what is to be known, what is yet to be known, things that are in the environment around us, things that exist that somebody knows about, okay? It's in the common knowledge spectrum. We may not know, and we have yet to know that. And that's a huge amount. What we don't know is more than what we know. Everybody, the
Yeah.
greatest person.
I think there's a saying around that as well. The more you know is the more you realize what you don't know.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
Absolutely.
yeah,
And then there is what the famous Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, shared at one point and confused people terribly. We have our known knowns, we have our unknown knowns, and we have our unknown unknowns. And people just couldn't handle that. But what he was really saying is, we have what we know, the things that we absolutely know. We have the things that are known that we don't yet know. And then there are those things that are totally unknown that nobody knows. And we're going to
yeah,
discover more of those. And
Like what's at the bottom of the Mariana Trench? Nobody
yeah,
knows.
right, right, exactly. But we know that there's a
But
Marian.
that's a known unknown.
Right,
Yes.
yeah,
right.
yeah.
We
We
know
know
that
that we
there's,
don't know that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But some of the things in quantum physics that have just recently been discovered are things that nobody knew, and they're now discovering. So our environment is huge. Its impact on us is huge, and we can only control a small portion of it, if any.
Speaking of control, I wanted to bring it back to the practical. Something that we didn't touch on is a quote that my mentor often tells me from his father: everything in its place, a place for everything. So when you're done with your space, clean it up.
Yeah.
If you brought in a snack or a mug of coffee, if whatever you had to do, if you were watching a TED talk on your topic and folding laundry and you left it on a chair, clean up your space so that when you come in, you have a fresh space to start with next time. That's something
Absolutely.
that's really practical, but it makes a difference. It makes a
Yeah.
huge difference to your mindset.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It is so powerful. And as usual, we've run out of time. We've barely scratched the surface on this topic. We could go far afield with it and do 6 or 7 other episodes on environment. But I think we've opened the door enough to get people thinking in a variety of areas. And folks out there watching this in the live or the replay, I encourage you to think about your environment. That's the first step. Look
Yeah.
around you and see what you have and what you need, what you don't have, and that's a starting point. It's a great way to go. Any last comments there as we wrap this up?
I would say pace yourself. New takes time to become a routine or a habit. So be gentle with your missteps. Be gentle with yourself internally and externally. Just pace yourself.
Yeah, and I would add experiment and have that attitude of trying things out, because it sometimes it looks awesome on paper, but when you put it into practice, it's like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, yeah,
So
and it
allow
is that.
yourself that freedom.
Yeah, it is that what was I thinking process that gets you to the right bits. That
Yeah, yeah.
if you're locked in, if you have an idea and you say, well, I can't do any wrong, so that idea must be right, even though it's not working for me, but I'll force it. You're
Nope,
you're not
nope.
going to get to the right answer.
Yeah, yeah. So
Allow
recognize
yourself.
that there's going to be that transition period. Things may not go well. Keep at it. Don't give up trying because it didn't work once or twice. In fact, it could not work. How many times? What was the figure? I know every time we talk about Einstein, there's a different figure.
Uh,
Or is
or
it Thomas
Edison.
Edison?
It's
Edison,
Edison. It's
right.
like 100 times or something.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
1,000 times. It's just
several
the
hundred
numbers
times. Yeah,
change all the
yeah,
time, but the
and
point is the trial.
it's a lot.
Trial
Yeah,
and error, trial and
And
error.
and
and
Keep
it's
on
a lot.
trying.
and not giving up. That's the key. I mean, he
Yeah,
could have given
yeah,
up
yeah.
at any point.
Keep
He could have
going.
said, "This is not going to work. I'm going to give up." But when it didn't work, it sparked a new idea, and he
Yeah.
tried something a little different.
Yep.
And he realized that, you know, if I just, a little bit, and he kept working, didn't give up. And with our environment is a work in progress.
Yeah.
So much of what
Yeah,
we
it
do
is.
is a work in progress, and so don't give up. Keep with it.
Yeah.
Keep in there.
Keep
We are done for the time. Thank you so
We're more than
much. Yeah, yeah.
Have we touched on habits specifically, Shelley-Ann, as a topic? I know we've done gratitude, but I can't remember if we've actually
yeah.
done.
No, we've spoken about habits like nearly every other other session.
It's worth
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
at
yeah.
on its own. Yeah, I like that.
Is that a good topic for next week?
Yeah.
Yes, and I will be there next week. I am not missing this one.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Cue the
All
music,
right.
and
All
bye bye,
right.
everybody. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.